Okay, welcome everybody. I'm here with a special guest, Kelly Simas of kellysimas.com. She is an astrologer, and she seems to specialize mainly in relationship astrology. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So today what we're going to do is we're going to end up chatting about aspects within the chart, philosophies, principles astrologically, that kind of give us insights into our relationships, maybe how to better navigate our relationships based on what's within the chart. So welcome, Kelly. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good. So, from your perspective, practicing Western astrology, when you're looking at someone's chart, I'm assuming that maybe like Vedic astrology, do you focus on maybe the 7th, 8th house for relationships? And if so, where do you put the most weight when you're assessing someone's chart?
Well, for me, I've noticed I look a lot at Venus because Venus is a giveaway a lot. So for me as a person, when you look at my chart, because I have so many planets in the 7th house according to Western astrology, you can see automatically, yes, this person is definitely focused on relationships and it's very prominent in my life. Where some people don't have any planets in the 7th or 8th house, but they have these certain dynamics with the moon and Venus. So the moon and Venus and aspects to those two planets is what I look at the most. Someone may not, someone who can relate to being a Pisces, for example, very dreamy, very infatuated, very sometimes disillusioned in relationships. They may not be a Pisces sun sign or rising or moon, but they have an aspect with Neptune and the moon, or Neptune and Venus. So that tells me that they have a certain pattern in relationships that really gives away how they function and how they view relationships and how they their values around relationships and the whole dynamic around that as well. So.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, Venus is, what we call a karaka or an archetype for relationships in Vedic astrology as well. And you mentioned like Neptune and the moon and Neptune and Venus. So when you're considering that, I mean, for example, if we do have Neptune influencing Venus, how would that look in a person's chart? Would it be a conjunction or a particular kind of aspect? And what kind of experience would a person have, or what would they need to know about themselves if they had that within their chart?
Yeah, I definitely focus on both conjunctions, squares, even trines, and even oppositions. And it's funny because I don't really notice a whole lot of difference between someone with a, for example, Neptune-Venus square versus Neptune-Venus trine, although maybe the square aspect may be a little more problematic in what they're attracting. Right. I have a friend who has a Neptune-Venus trine, and relationships of all kinds, and she falls very quickly in love, but she also has the capacity to fall out of love very quickly, where it doesn't consume her too much, versus someone who may have a Neptune-Venus square, where they're more, it's harder for them to process that energy, and they may feel even more stuck and inhibited in that energy. So those are two examples, but they all color similarly, just the stress levels obviously are different.
Right. Well, in Vedic astrology, I mean, I'm vaguely aware of the idea of like angles or, angles being more problematic, and trines being a little bit easier aspect. So, we would have the angles being a more active influence and the trines being a more graceful influence.
Yes, exactly.
And Neptune, by its nature, that's the thing that gives it more of the dreamy quality, the fantasy quality. Is that how you describe it? Okay.
Yes.
Well, what if you took something like Pluto and you put it in an angle from Venus? What would happen there?
Yeah. So Pluto, to me, Pluto is kind of like it's all about power, but it's also the truth. Like Pluto's kind of like the naked truth and nothing but the truth. That's how I see Pluto. So it's much more severe and confrontational, and it's dealing with power and dealing with willpower too, and any fears around that, because Pluto tends to bring out the deepest fears or hangups that we have. So we're Neptune, we're more apt to escape or kind of create this, I don't know, fantasy around what's going on with relationships. Pluto is a lot more in your face, confrontational, and it forces us to look at things where sometimes with Neptune, we're not as chromatically influenced to face things. We're more apt to escape, where Pluto, there's no escapism. It's like, there it is, and how are you gonna deal with it.
Right.
And Pluto doesn't really care of what you think or what you dream or what you believe. It's just, that's where, how are you going to use this energy to either have power in a very positive way, or how is that power going to ultimately, you know, create problems in the relationship. So Pluto is also very confrontational, very intense. So, you know, I was born with Pluto in my 7th house according to, you know, Western astrology. So, you know, as much as I'm dreamy with the Pisces ascendant, as much as I love to fantasize and have these high idealisms around relationship, I've also been faced with a lot of truths, and how and how those infatuating qualities have forced me to look at those, the consequences and the lessons that come with that. So,
Well,
sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
that's okay. I was just curious, you know, since you've had some experience with it, if you saw someone that had like Venus and Pluto together, or a conjunct, or in an angle, or aspect in some way, like what would you say to the person about how to work with that, how to understand it that way they're not just soul crushed by it? You know, how do you approach that?
Yeah, well, first bring to their awareness, like, accept the fact that you like intensity. You like that intensity, as do I admit I do as well. But know that, there's two sides to that, and use that intensity for experience, for passion, for good. But know that there's a fine line where it can cross over and create problems too. And but know that power can give you more of a channel to explore your capacity to love greatly, and to experience the human experience of passion, and of, you know, of fire, of, I don't know, it's just a very powerful energy. And, you know, but also how that can easily be transferred into power struggles and fears and that. But to know that, you know, experiencing both sides of it is part of the human experience. And I think it's important to know that it's okay to experience the, I guess, so-called negative aspects to it as well as the positive, because I think we're here to learn what contrasts are all about. Like, I think that's why we're given these energies and these what do you say?
The planetary qualities?
Yeah, exactly. Because this world is duality, you know,
Right.
Everything's about duality. So to be okay with knowing that, yes, you have this aspect that can be great, but there's also an aspect to it that can be very difficult, and kind of, you know, finding that balance. And maybe because I have so much energy in Libra, I'm constantly trying to balance these energies out and not have to sway to one side to the other, because, you know, that's not life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's about exploring those two things, and then finding some center in all of that. Because I think at the end of the day, we do have to find our center, even with the dark and light, you know, the positive, negative. It's all about experiencing both sides, but finding our center within those two.
Right. Well, you know, you're right. We've got these planets for a reason. I mean, we've got Saturn, we've got Mars, we've got these, what we would call crueler planets for a reason. And to think that we can get through life without them is kind of a false idea.
Yeah.
And even spiritually speaking, you know, in yogic texts, they say things like, you're meant to get beyond attachment and aversion.
Yes.
It doesn't say you're meant to have a life where everything works out perfectly all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, so many of my clients, they come to me, they're like, Kelly, I just want to be happy. I just want to have this love. I just want to have this. And as much as I'm very, you know, I'm very idealistic. I'm very, like, you know, I have that aspect, but I also have the realistic, like, this is reality. And that's where I kind of come as a contradiction in many ways. But I know those are two facets to my existence. I'm very intuitive, very, you know, idealistic in many ways, but I'm also very logical and practical. Maybe that's the gift I've been given in this lifetime, to have these two sides to me that are very prominent,
Right.
and to learn how to balance these two energies. And I think it's important to realize that, you know, to experience happiness and bliss and all of that, we have to understand the other side of it. You know, and I think for me, even at this stage in my life, I think I've become much genuinely happier. I'm smiling more, I'm laughing more, but I can't say the sadness and the grief has alleviated in many, like, it's still there. The contrast is still there. And I think the more we can, explore both sides, the more we can come into balance of that, because happiness and love can be found in both aspects. Because for me, I was always chasing love through the high, and I was addicted to the high. And I just, even to this day, I know I love being there. And when I'm not there, it's like, oh, but I've learned how to love that too, how to just be in that and to be alive in that, pain and that struggle, and knowing that it's ultimately teaching me something beautiful, and it's going to spring me up again to higher states. And life is always a roller coaster. And I tell people, as long as astrology exists, life will never be like flowing. Like, life will never be easygoing. Like, people are waiting for the day when everything falls into place and that life will be peaceful, or life will be better. And I tell people, as long as there's astrology, life will never be always, smooth sailing. It doesn't really exist. And when you come to that realization, you can go through these elements much more gracefully. And that's what astrology has given me. If anything, astrology has given me the gift of grace. Because I'm like, this is what's going on. Like, I had Uranus square Venus all last year. Well, and I had no control over what was going on. Uranus was shaking up everything when it came to relationships. And anytime I try to control it or fix it or make it better, the more I got knocked down with that energy, and I had to surrender to it. And it was painful and it was difficult, but man, did it teach me a lot. And there were so many gifts in that. So again, it's finding the silver lining to all of it. And this is what I try to teach my clients, and a lot of my clients say, well, after this, will things be better from now on? They just want everything to be better from now on. I'm like, well, yeah, this energy will shift, but then you got this coming in the next 2 years, and it's not easy. It's a different element, but.
Well, I mean, it's a very good point you bring up. And, when I teach astrology classes, that's one of the things that I really would love people to realize is astrology isn't about making your life perfect. It's about giving you that greater vision to see how it all fits together. It's like when you choose to read a book, you read a book that every chapter is like, and then this great thing happened, and then this great thing happened, and then this great thing happened. And you get through the book and great things happen in every single chapter and not a bad thing happened. No, why do you pick up a book, and why are you so fixated on it? You want to get to the next chapter because there's the positive thing that comes in. There's a negative thing that comes in. There's the planets moving and churning things up, So that's a very good thing. I think that, trying to get people to see that astrology can help you see the bigger picture.
Yes.
Which is a Jupiter thing, right? Jupiter and Venus are the prime astrologers. Jupiter allows you to see how everything fits together. He doesn't make it perfect, but you're happy because you see the plan. And what Venus does, Venus is considered to be the planet or the guru of the Asuras or the demons, which that's not demonic as in your head spinning, but it's worldly success. So it's in this time and space, So the two astrologers, Venus and Jupiter, are all about teaching you how to function from the bigger picture as well as within this world. So one thing you brought up, you mentioned Uranus. Was it squaring your Venus? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about Pluto. We talked a little bit about Neptune. So when you're thinking about Uranus and Venus, with Venus, aspecting Venus, transiting Venus, whatever it might be, what kind of experience does that usually bring, and what's recommended to have a person, how would they deal with that best?
Yeah, to me, Jupiter is like the shake-up. It's the wake-up call, and it's the breakdown of what no longer is working. So for me, because I've been so fixated on relationships and going about relationships in a certain way, and I was in a long-term relationship who I thought, he's going to be my husband, father my children, and that was not. And when that ended, that's when Uranus started creating these shakeups, and it was forcing
Venus, right?
Yes, to Venus,
okay,
yes.
Okay.
And it was creating this breakdown of what I was trying to hang on to. So Uranus can be very, it's the planet of awakening. It shakes you up, and it kind of jolts you, and you're like, wow, okay, what's happening here? And it throws you for a loop. I underestimated, when I saw Jupiter coming in, I completely underestimated this energy. And that's what happens. You can't predict Uranus. You cannot measure, you can measure the time of when it's happening, but you can't predict how it's going to hit you.
Right.
It's unpredictable. You don't know how severe it's going to hit. But to me, Uranus creates this need to break down what's no longer part of where you're going. It's like it's a dynamic that's no longer serving on some level, and it was really forcing me to look at my values and to look at how it needed to be shifted and changed. So
it forced you to look more at who you are. Or, I mean, is that because that's one of the things I've been told about Uranus is it's really helping to bring you into who you are as an individual. Is that? Yes. I didn't hear you say that, but I was curious if you see it that way too.
Yes, and but with me, with the whole Venus to me represents love and values.
Okay.
For me, when Uranus was creating this havoc with Venus, when it was creating this conversation with Venus, it was shaking up this need for me to hold on to this old dream that I had around what my relationship looked like. So I had to, my relationship and what I thought it represented, and all my hopes and dreams around that relationship was completely shattered because I was holding it in a place that no longer belonged there. Mm-hmm. So it was forcing me to find breaking out of that and seeking more freedom and liberation through that dynamic that I was holding on to so strongly that wasn't serving anymore.
Right. Okay. And that was when Uranus was it Aries at the time? Or okay. All right. So squaring your Venus. And so if anyone would have, I guess, Venus in maybe Capricorn or Libra or Cancer or Aries, they might have a similar issue going on?
Yes. Very similar. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, so you look mainly at Venus, and we're looking at the outer planets. I'm curious, when you look at Venus, how do you tie in also like Jupiter and Saturn and the more, I guess what you would call personal planets? Any thoughts on that, or is it mainly just the outer planets that make the most difference here? No,
Saturn and Jupiter are the same. Saturn, whenever Saturn comes in, to me, Saturn always crystallizes the inhibition. What's no longer making me satisfied, fulfilled? Where's the blocks that are happening? Where the adjustments need to happen? And Jupiter creates this need to look deeper into it, see it from a different perspective, take a step back and see a bigger picture of it. But in order to see, for me, in order for Jupiter to work, we have to work with Saturn.
Right.
Without working with Saturn, Jupiter will not do anything. To me, it's through the lessons and the work of Saturn where Jupiter comes in and then opens the vision and the understanding. That's how I view it. So I tell people Jupiter is a guiding light. It gives us a higher perspective or a greater perspective, but that comes through the work of Saturn of seeing, okay, like where's the inhibition here? Where's the block here? Where's the need to look down, and where is it that adjustments need to be made? And that's kind of how I see those two planets. So when I see Saturn aspecting the moon or the Venus, I see, there's adjustments that need to be made. There's certain things that are being brought up to challenge. And then Jupiter comes in to bring more of a need to readjust our focus, readjust how we're perceiving and how we're seeing the actual circumstances or situations.
Okay. So Saturn, in a sense, kind of points out where there might be lack of fulfillment with Venusian things.
Yes. Yeah.
And Jupiter helps you see it in relationship, I guess, in the bigger picture, the bigger scope of things. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. In Vedic astrology, Venus is actually an enemy to Jupiter, but Jupiter is not an enemy to Venus. And that's kind of fascinating because Venus is exalted in Jupiter's sign, but the idea is that the reason Venus is an enemy to Jupiter is because it's taking a person, rather than seeing the bigger picture, they're trying to focus on getting all the fulfillment they can, out of the temporal world, right? Yeah. And that starves the happiness that Jupiter can give. But the funny thing is that Saturn is not considered to be an enemy to Venus. It's actually a friend of Venus. So, one of the things that I've seen with Venus and Saturn is that, yes, it can give what you're describing, but in the long run, it actually makes it work out a little bit better because you're able to see the reality.
Yes.
See the reality of the fact that you even have love in the world, and that's a great thing because some people don't even have that,
Yeah.
So, excellent. Okay. Well, this is fascinating. I'm thinking maybe we'll conclude with this little section here because that's a lot that we've given people.
Yes.
And if you want to get back together again, maybe in the future, we could focus more on house-related principles and relationships. Is that something you'd be up for?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today, Kelly. And do you want to go ahead and share your contact information one more time for folks who might want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on YouTube on my channel, Kelly Simas, and you can reach me again through my website, www.kellysimas.com. And I do have a Facebook page as well, so you can find me there as well.
Okay, great. It was wonderful to talk to you.
You too. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.